tribe are you from?
I'm Caddo.
Can you spell?
I can write that for you, because then you'll know. I'm Caddo, and Oto, and Kaw.
And what is the origin of all of those tribes? Are they originally from Oklahoma? I don't think so.
No.
So where did they come from?
The Caddos come from Louisiana, and the Oto come from Missouri, and the Kaws come from Kansas.
Where is this tribe from?
Missouri, and these are from Kansas, and these are from Louisiana.
So actually, then, one of them is a Plains Indian.
All three are.
All three are Plains? So you're from, the Caddo are from northern Louisiana then?
No, they're from southern Louisiana. I forgot they're not a Plains Indian.
They're not a Plains Indian, but the other two are.
Yeah, they became Plains when they moved to Oklahoma.
That's right.
Yeah. My mother is full-blood Caddo, meaning she's
Full blood. She is pure Caddo, 100%.
Then my dad is half Oto and half Kaw.
I'm going to help her ask a few questions because I'm not sure she'll know what questions to ask.
No.
So were you raised speaking any of the native languages?
None of those. I mean, not any of the tribes I am, but I do speak a little bit of Creek and Cherokee. Only because I was raised around them. Not in their family, but I grew up with them. And Yuchi, I speak a little bit of Yuchi.
And I heard you explaining your responsibilities. It sounds like it's cross-curricular. There's an element of history, there's an element of language, there's probably equity of access issues. So can you talk to us about the challenges of Native Americans and public education?
We have a different learning style. That would probably be our first roadblock there, and a lot of people don't understand that. Even though it's in Oklahoma, and we're the most populated Indian tribes in the nation are here, the largest amount.
Which tribe is the most populated?
Probably the largest tribe in Oklahoma, I would imagine, is
the Cherokee.
Cherokee. And they are not native to here.
But the learning style is a lot different, and even though our state is well over 100 years old, and they've taught Native children all throughout time, there still is that misunderstanding on how they learn. It's because they learn differently. You'll find that they don't raise their hand always. When you ask them a question, it takes a long time for them to answer. And the reason for it is they're taught to listen and evaluate before they give the answer, so they don't give the wrong answer. They want you to give the correct answer. When there's an elder in the room, like a teacher, they're to listen. And you'll find some that don't have that cultural trait, and that's because they might have not lived in their community where their mother and father did. So they might have moved to the city and left their traditional or ceremonial grounds in Oklahoma. We have a lot of ceremonial grounds throughout the state that a lot of people don't know about because they're back in the woods, and they're not kept secret, but they're sacred to all the tribes.
I think that many white Oklahomans are completely oblivious to the native culture around them.
Well,
Ils ignorent complètement. Oblivious, it's a great adjective for you to learn in English. Oblivious. O-B-L-I-V-I-O-U-S. Oblivieux, si c'était un mot en français, mais ce n'est pas un mot en français. So there we go.
That's okay, that's okay.
She learned a new word.
Yeah, a lot of my friends that are non-Indian, that I grew up with, still didn't understand all of our ceremonies, and it's only because they weren't invited or didn't get involved with it. And then when I find out later on, after I went to college and everything, and they see me in that situation, then they go, "Oh, I didn't know you were traditional." And I said, "Yeah," but that's something we don't portray out there. And a lot of ceremonies are a lot different from what you see at powwows or at Red Earth or whatever. Those are traditional and ceremonial things too, but that's not everybody in Oklahoma doesn't dance that way. So we have not a secret society, but we do have a ceremonial cultural side that a lot of people don't see. And that's why our children learn a little different, you know. We're not slow, it's just that we're taught to listen.
It is perceived by white Americans and probably even black Americans that students who are Native American, as you say, I'm a teacher, so I observe what you say, they will take more time to process. Often give a simple sign of understanding rather than responding with words. And when they write, there's an economy of words. And we have a tendency as white Americans to think the more you write, the better it is. Or the more you say, the better your answer is. And I have a student in class right now who is pure Seminole. And I have noticed that when she speaks, I should pay very close attention. Because when she finally speaks, it will be a gem. But she has a very powerful internal processor. She's a very smart student, but I can imagine that an inattentive teacher or a teacher who has not been trained to look for certain cues would think that she is not even participating, perhaps, in class.
And that's right. Many times they're listening and evaluating, even though they're not in the conversation or they haven't been asked a question, they're listening and evaluating. And they're kind of a silent minority.
Right.
You know? And they're that way in not only there, but at home too, because when the elders speak, they're to listen. Even if it's someone that's not related to them, it's an older person, then they're...
So if you're responsible also for helping Native students in Oklahoma to learn about their history, when you have so many different tribes and they each have their own history, how do you meet that challenge?
I have resources like you wouldn't believe. And many of the resources are people that are members of their tribe that have that documentation and resources for them. We want to be able to provide that for the student as well as the teacher, so they'll be able to use that in Oklahoma history. Some of the information that they do have in Oklahoma history is good, but some of it's not correct. And those are things we want to look at and give the Indian point of view of that, or the Indian side of that. And
I would imagine also that there's a tendency to teach like this, the history of the 5 civilized tribes. And as if now we've addressed the Indian question.
No,
and I would think if I were a student who was from the Oto or one of the lesser, perhaps not a lesser tribe, but I don't know the right word, that's not as popular in white culture, it would be harder to find the information.
It will be, but many of them do have it. So if you want to know information about them, you just contact the tribal headquarters, and they can put that information together for you.
Now, I know at our school, for example, in our school district, we have Native American tutors who come to the school. Can you explain something about this tutoring system? I think it would be interesting to our project.
What's happened is the U.S. government, our government, had signed treaties a long time ago when they first came here, and the Indians really didn't kind of understand why they wanted to trade for land, because the land was free to everyone. So the government wanted to take over the land, so what they did, they wanted to sign a treaty. And the treaty stated that they would provide health and education for these tribal members. And as the saying goes, as long as the grass grows and the water flows and the sky is blue, we'll continue to do that. Well, we hold them to that. And what happens is the U.S. government provides a grant program to provide to school districts that have Indian students. And that grant program is used to hire tutors to tutor those students. And they use them 2 ways.
To tutor is to give a private lesson, individual instruction.
So they do this, and they do it two ways. One, they use a certified teacher, if they need be, and the other one is they use a paraprofessional teacher, and that is usually a Native American adult who has a tutoring background and knows the basics of education, reading, writing, arithmetic, and so on and so forth. They're very helpful in working with the Indian children at the beginning level. When they get to the secondary level, then what they do is usually a certified teacher will take on their tutoring responsibility after school. And sometimes they do hire certified teachers to tutor during school, so it's a pull-out program. We have probably over 400 of those Indian Ed programs in the state of Oklahoma. And many of them use it like that. But they also use that grant. Half of it is academics, the other half is culture enrichment. And what that is they help with their academic and they help them to stay in touch with their culture by bringing resources in for them to experience and ask questions about. Might be a singer, might be a speaker, might be an arts and craft person.
They've done field trips also.
Yeah, they do field trips and just so on and so forth. But this is all to enhance that child, give them the opportunity to stay in touch with their culture and to still advance in their academics. So that's why you have tutors there.
That's very good. Do you have any other questions for him?
Je n'avais pas préparé.
Non, c'est pas grave.
Mais je pense que j'en aurais beaucoup d'autres. Mais